What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the DK Garage. I'm Jeremy, that's Joe, and this is the Race Day Rundown.
Yeah, we're at Sonoma Raceway this weekend, and it's back to the original NASCAR metrics, setting the starting grid. We've got some interesting drivers and some great spots for value, some chalk plays. We really went into detail and broke it all down in our podcast. That link's above. Strategy is going to be key. We went into really a lot of detail in the podcast about that because I think that's something that's going to set apart lineups this week.
There are only 63 performance points in this race. I think Kyle Larson got that at the end of the first stage in the most recent race. So you will have to build your lineups differently because the strategy to get that top lineup is different than what it was last week and typically other NASCAR races. Obviously, road courses are going to be similar. But yeah, we really broke down the strategy in our podcast. You will, if you're a little bit new to this, you'll want to listen to that for sure.
We've got a hyperlink in the comments in that video so you can get directly to it. We did a great job, I think, this week of breaking down the drivers. Also, quick hyperlink in the comments there. But we're here to get you in and out, get you really information you need to do your lineup build. We do our impact score here, 1 to 10. 1 not being a huge impact on the race in our opinion from a DraftKings angle, 10 being a huge impact. Let's get into it. We're at Sonoma Raceway. We've got only 90 laps this week, 63 performance points available. That's not very many. So the strategy is key. Like we've talked about, the stages 20, 20, and 50. And we weren't here last year in 2020, 2019, and 2018. Martin Truex Jr. was the winner. And guess who we get to talk about first this week at the top of the salary board?
Well, before we do that, quick little emphasis on these stages. We did talk about this in the podcast, but I want to summarize it quickly here. You can run the first full stage green. And they'll throw a competition caution, I'm sure, since there's no practice or qualifying. It'll be interesting to see if that changes up anyone pitting then. I doubt it, but we will see. But if it's anything like 2019, you're going to have some guys that stay out to collect stage points, and that's the race that they're going for. And then you're going to have guys going for it, going for the win. So they're going to be pitting before the stage. So strategy, these cars are going to get mixed up. It's going to be just something to think about as you watch this race.
It is definitely going to be a key factor. Martin Truex is going to be a key factor. Big impact on the race. Speaking of impacts, my score is a 10. The first time I've given a 10, I believe, this year. You've given him a 10 as well?
I think you may have given someone a 10 before, but we're both very stingy with them, and we're very generous this week with Martin Truex.
Starting 19th, 10-9. That place differential is really a key part of the strategy needed this week. That is going to be something that really a lot of people are going to be all over. Plus his track history, his road course history. We went through a lot of information recently with COTA and all of that leading up to the road courses that we're able to take in this year, 7 of them. This is the 3rd. He's going to be key player in all of those. This value you're not going to find all that often, and people are going to be all over it.
He should be and likely will be the highest owned driver, starting 19th. We do try to keep this episode as short as we can to get you in and out, and the best way I could summarize Truex is what you already said. He's won the last 2 races here. You're getting potentially the best driver at this course, starting 19th. When you hear what our strategy is this week, you'll know why he is our number 1 guy.
Chase Elliott, 10-5, starting 2nd. The most recent road course winner at COTA, albeit rain shortened. We have stats with the DK Garage thoughts in our Patreon that we talked about in our podcast that, hey, this guy, he's got the information or a lot of good stats here, but that price is a little bit iffy. The strategy this week is going to be interesting to see how to play it. I've given him a 7 because I think there's other guys that have a little bit better path, including his teammates, who we'll talk about here shortly.
It is really tough up here towards the top of this salary board with some of these really good drivers. To me, when it comes down to Elliott, it really is Larson going to be the guy that gets out front and leads this race early? If he is, that's going to make it difficult for Chase. There's still 90 laps. He can still get some extra performance points, but no PD upside, really. But because I don't know, he's just so good. He's the king of road courses right now. I'm still going to give him an 8 this week.
He's worth it, I think, to have. Definitely don't want to miss the boat on him. Kyle Busch, 10-3, starting 5th. Another solid guy, driver at road courses. We saw him at COTA here recently do really, really well in multiple series. Starting 5th, he's somebody that offers a little bit of place differential, but not as much as some of these other guys, but he's still so good.
I think this race does shape up to be a potential part 2 of last week, but road course edition, where the Hendrick cars are up front and they have the ability to stay up front. And Kyle Busch may be, outside of Truex, if he is able to race his way up there, Kyle Busch may be the only guy to be able to break up that Hendrick train that we've seen these last couple weeks. I'm giving him an 8, mostly because he doesn't have a ton of PD upside. If he was starting a few further spots, he would be 9. But it's a strong 8 for me for Kyle Busch this week.
Joey Logano, 10-1, starting 13th. I've given him a 9 because he offers place differential. We've seen him strong in the 750 configuration. Very much more of an established road course racer as of late. I think he offers that much-needed place differential and a path to that. That's why I'm at a 9.
Yeah, he has been strong this year on the road courses. But for me, I am factoring in his history here, at least in the last 3. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. We are looking for that PD upside. We are kind of starved for it for these higher-priced drivers. I'm giving him an 8, which is still a strong score, but I'm not as favorable on Logano as you are, obviously.
Well, Denny Hamlin's the guy that we start this next tier out under 10,000. He's 9,900, starting 4th. I've given him a 6 because I think, like you talked about, Hendrick is going to be some of the drivers that really have an opportunity to lead laps and stuff. But Hamlin's done it before, but I just haven't seen the last few weeks to really feel confident with where he's at in the price. I think there's some other drivers that might have a little bit better value. I've given him a 6.
Yeah, based on how our conversations have kind of gone this year, I'm a little surprised when I saw that you gave him a 6, because I seem to be maybe a little bit lower on Hamlin just overall this year than what you've kind of been. So when I saw that you gave him a 6 as well, I was like, wow, okay, we're really kind of seeing the same thing. And it just comes down to he hasn't shown that speed to compete with Hendrick cars in the last few weeks and in road courses in general. I think he's going to be a fine play as far as the team will like a strong finish. But I find it hard that he's going to be very beneficial to your DraftKings lineup.
Agreed. Kyle Larson, 9,700, starting first, is somebody I think a lot of people are going to want exposure to, and it's for a lot of good reasons. We went really in depth and deep.
He's still leading laps now as we talk.
We went a lot into depth about some of the stats specific to Sonoma, where he's been on the pole three times in a row, now 4th. The previous 3 he actually earned. There's some good stuff about what he's done here and his performances lately on the road courses.
I'm going to come in at a 7 on Larson. I would go a little higher. It's just difficult when he's got 2 really good teammates right behind him. And, Kyle Busch is there, and eventually Truex is coming. If he was maybe starting a few spots back, I might like him a little bit more. But the riskiness of starting first with so many talented road course drivers behind him is a little worrisome for me. But I can totally see Larson leading another 60% of this race and finishing top 3. He has the capability for sure.
Well, I've given him an 8 because I think he could have a performance where he leads, say, half the laps. If he does that, he's easily reaching 5-6x and paying off that price tag. And if you're able to fit him in the lineup with Truex and he comes on strong too, you've really got your bases covered. But a lot of people are going to be thinking that way, and there's other drivers they can look at. William Byron, 9,500, starting third. I think we both see him as a driver that you could build very similar lineups and be a little bit different.
I like Byron quite a bit, but I recognize it's a risky play starting third. But you're right, like a Truex Byron kind of build at the top, and with some of these mid guys we're going to talk about here in a second, that could be a really nice play. And I think Byron could go easily overlooked when he's surrounded by guys like Larson and Blaney, Kurt Busch. I think he'll be low owned, but there is risk involved.
Definitely risk, but now we get to a couple drivers that have some place differential. We're starred for it up at the top, but we've got some salary relief with Brian Blaney, 9,300, starting 11th. He's been strong in a few select road courses, this being one of them. I've given him a score of 8 because I think that place differential allows him a better path to value than some of these other drivers, but a lot of people will see it the same way.
I can see Blaney doing really well at this track because he was really solid the last time they were here in 2019. I gave him an 8 as well, but I am also a little cautious on Blaney too because I could see him having an average run of a 11th, 10th, somewhere around in there, maybe 8th. If he does that, he's probably not hitting that value you need to at least take home the big tournament. So I think he's a really fine cash play. And even a tournament play because maybe a little bit lower ownership. But I don't know. I am a little reluctant. Just got to put that out there.
Well, Kurt Busch, 9,100, starting 30th, is probably going to be chalk. But
for sure,
he's one of the drivers that we've selected as our checkered flag in our race guide. Our race guide, the link's below. It is a great pairing of a digital magazine to go along with all this data and information that we're putting out here and that we cover in our podcast. It allows you to take a quick view at that, check it out whenever you get done with this video to help you build your lineups. We got some core builds there as well. But Kurt Busch starting 30th because of a engine or a issue mechanically last week. His teammate Ross Chastain, who we'll talk about here in a little bit as well, very similar situation. He's got a couple top 10s here at this track in the last few trips. He's somebody that we should probably look at, especially with that place differential.
I really like him. There is some hesitancy because he's been in some situations like this year. Hasn't paid off. He's not always a lay-down hand, let's put it that way. But I gave him a 10 because we saw in the most recent time here, Erik Jones, I believe he started 32nd and still finished top 5 or top 10. It's a difficult track to pass at, but if you're a fast car and a talented driver, which Kurt Busch is, and he also has that type of car, he can easily find his way into the top 15 and knocking on the door at the top 10 by the end of this race. If he does that, starting where he's at with that salary, you're going to want him in your lineup. Don't have to go 100% on Kurt Busch. That's definitely not advised here, but he should be in a majority of them, I would think.
I would agree with you. I'm giving him a 9 because of that. He's got a great path to value. These next 3 drivers, to me, are very similar. We've got Kevin Harvick at 8,900, starting 8th. Alex Bowman, 8,700, starting 7th. And Brad Keselowski, 8,500, starting 9th. So we've got the cars 7, 8, and 9, 3 different teams. And we've got pretty much even scores on those guys because there's a lot to like about them in previous stats and then lots to like about certain stats that they bring this year. Man, or is there one you like more than the other out of those 3?
I would say, I don't know. It is really tough. I would probably lean Harvick based on track history. In the last 3, he's averaging a 3rd place finish, and he also has a win here. He's solid, but then there's the issue with kind of how he's been running this year. If we use that metric, I think Alex Bowman could be the strongest. I'm at a 6 on Harvick. I'm at a 6 on Bowman. And Brad, I'm at a 5. He's kind of right there at knocking on the door at a 6. But I think he can move up a couple places, but I think with the guys above him and below him, it's a little hard for me to want to put really any of these guys in my lineups, but great pivots off of these chalk guys like Kurt Busch, maybe guys like Christopher Bell, things like that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I've got the Harvick and Keselowski combo at 6, and I'm a little bit higher on Alex Bowman at 7. He's got that Hendrick speed. He can get around the road courses. He's getting a little bit better in that skill set. So I think he offers a little bit of upside. If I had seen a little bit more consistency and speed with Kevin Harvick this year, I would be all over that. But unfortunately, I just haven't seen it. But he is somebody I would look to look at in a GPP environment.
Well, if he had that speed, I'm sure DraftKings would have him more expensive too. So
absolutely. But we get on to Christopher Bell, 8,400, starting 20th. He's in a great place differential spot. I've given him an 8 because of that. We saw him win at a road course earlier this year at Daytona. This is something that we might be able to get a little bit of place differential upside here.
I'm right there with you. I'm at an 8. He doesn't have to do that much to hit a solid value for your lineups, which is the positive. But there's obviously risk. We've seen it with Bell, times where he was in good positions before. It didn't really pay out. I tend to think it will, but the biggest hesitancy here for me would be he's never been on this track. I don't think he's getting I don't think he's going to be one of those guys in the ARCA series getting to race. Maybe it takes him too long to figure the track out. That would be the biggest hesitancy. But he's a talented driver, and his crew chief is top-notch, so that's why I'm at an 8.
Speaking of talented drivers, Mandy Diaz is next, 8,200, starting 17th. I've given him a 7. I think he's a decent play. He's somebody that you can sprinkle throughout, but he's not anybody I'm really looking to in a core build situation.
The thing about Mandy D that's nice is if the car is where it needs to be, we already know that he can get a top 5 finish. He did it not the last time that they were here, which he was in Levine Family Racing equipment, which we would say is not as good as the Wood Brothers equipment. But Mandy Diaz said, for whatever reason, the Penske road course seemed to be a little bit slower than what Levine Family had. So I'm at a 7. I like this play, the price, the starting position, and the really high upside that Mandy D offers for this track. It really is going to come down to, can they turn that car around? And we haven't really seen it in these first 2 road courses this year. So a little cautious, but I do like the play there.
Well, Tyler Reddick, $8,000, starting 10th is where we're at now. He showed at COTA that he was able to have some speed on the road course. He won the pole. He's somebody that hasn't had the greatest road course history, but he's still young, learning, and he's adapting. He's an interesting spot, starting 10th. It's just, I want a little bit, but I don't want too much because it's not as easy to achieve value.
Exactly. I see the potential there. If he can figure this course out real quick, he's a solid play. And he might go a little overlooked because there's some really nice PD plays right above him and below him. So you might be able to get Reddick at a little lower ownership. I gave him a 7, but like you said, his path to value is not going to be as easy as the next guy on the slate, which is Erik Amarola, starting 26 at 7,900. Here we are again, man. Erik Amarola every week. He's in a fantastic spot, but will he pay off? What are you kind of expecting from Amarola this week?
Well, I've given him an 8. I'm a little bit higher on him than you are because I think people have the same mindset you just kind of laid out there, and he's actually...
Well, so far it's been working.
Yeah, he's actually pretty solid at these road courses, and specifically here, he's got a couple top 10s. This dude might be able to get something done and do it a little bit under the radar because Ross Chastain underneath him might be more chalk. So I've given Erik Amarola an 8.
I'm going to land at a 7. The 7 is strictly just because of the salary and starting position and knowing that his car is at least a top 20, if not a top 15 car. But will he have the luck? Will he be able to keep it clean? Will they show up with some of that speed that we've seen this year where he has had unfortunate luck? All these are unknowns, and at this point, I would lean towards being cautious, but you have to recognize the situation. So I'm at a 7. But the next guy, Rosh Chastain, you talked about 29th, 7,700. I got to land at a 9. He's been this year, especially in the more recent races, he's been much more consistent and much stronger of a car than what and driver performance than what Amarola has been. I have to respect that. I don't think that head-to-head his equipment is that much better than Amarola's, but the driver performance, in my opinion, has just been far superior. How close they are in price and starting position.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're very similar plays. That's why I've given him an 8 as well. He does offer a couple place differential better than Erik Amarola, but I think a lot more ownership will fall on him. He's our green flag for a reason. There's a lot of upside. I'm very high on him, but I think there's a couple guys that you can shift off of so you won't be as chalk or won't own as much chalk, but very, very strong play in my opinion. I think we can both agree on that. Michael McDowell, 7,600, starting 21st. He's another guy that's very interesting. Him and Cole Custer are kind of the same plays. 7,500 for Cole Custer, 23rd. We've given them pretty much a flip-flop on our scores. I'm going with a 7 on McDowell. Where are you at?
Well, I'm going to land at an 8. Basically, yeah, our scores are identical but flipped. They average out at 7.5 each. I'm taking McDowell to higher at the 8 because of the experience. I'm guessing you're going with Cole Custer maybe a little bit more because of the equipment and the 2 positions better on starting position.
Yeah, and ownership again. I think a lot of people will understand McDowell's a great road racer and won't understand that Custer's not a bad road racer. He doesn't have the experience and exposure here, but I think he's somebody that you could get at a lower ownership and for a couple different place differentials and the price difference. I like it.
So I think up to this point, most of the guys we've talked about have been pretty positive. Some caution, but not too much caution. Well, now we come to our real caution guy, our yellow flag this week, Austin Dillon. He starts 6th, 7,400. I'm at a 4, and it's not because I don't think he can have a good run. I just don't see his path to value being there realistically at all. So I'm at a 4 for him.
And I've given him a 5 for the same reasons. He's not the greatest road course racer. He's admitted that. It's something he's working on, but I just haven't seen it yet materialize. And starting 6th, it's not a great path to value this week. So we're cautioning people there. But looking at Chris Buescher, starting 12th, 7,200, he's been pretty consistent. He's got some decent road course history. He's somebody that I think should have some ownership. I want to have a little bit here or there. I've given him a 7. Where are you at on him?
I'll put him in a little bit to diversify some of these mid-tier guys, but not super high on Buescher, mostly because the path to value is, again, it's there. It's just not as easily achievable as I would like from some of these guys around this price tag. So I'm going to land at a 6 on Buescher this week.
And I think Erik Jones, who we're talking about next, 7,000, starting 18th, the path to value with the car and the starting position this week just is not the right mix. I'm at a 6 on him this week.
Yeah, I'm going to land at a 5. It wouldn't surprise me to be somewhat surprised if Erik Jones has a good run. I mentioned just a little earlier, he finished top 10. It may have been top. I don't think it was top 5. I think it was top 10 after starting 32nd. Now, that was in different equipment, much better equipment, but that obviously tells me, hey, he can at least get around this track. If they're able to show up with a good car, he could be a nice pivot off of some of these other chalky plays. But I personally am reluctant based on the reasons that you said. So I'm going to 5.
Chase Briscoe, 6,900, starting 25th. I think we're both high on him in this position. He's somebody that's looked strong in road courses in previous series history. And even at the road courses this year, we had him at Daytona. He had the hood issue, finished a little bit further back. But at COTA, 6th place finish, very strong, albeit in the rain shortened event. But somebody with that price tag and that place differential, there's a really strong path to value.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's also going to get some, I believe, some time in an ARCA car before this race kicks off. There's no Xfinity here. It's going to be at Mid-Ohio this week, and the trucks are off this week. So there's really not a lot of opportunities for any of these other guys to get into a car who's never been on this track before. So Chase Briscoe will have a leg up on all those other guys. I'm going to 8, and it's a pretty strong 8 because we are kind of getting to that range, and where some of these guys fall with their equipment and starting positions, there's not a ton of value down here. So I'm a pretty big fan of Chase Briscoe this week.
Yeah, there's not a lot of value. Brian Priest at 6,800 starting 27th. He's somebody you could take a look at, but not very strong. Bubba Wallace isn't in a great position this week, but Daniel Suarez, I think, is the next guy that really could be someone to take a look at. He's 6,400 starting 16th. I've given him an 8 because I think he's been strong in some of these races where they've had the 750 horsepower package and something that he's pretty decent at road courses. It might be the right nice mix to really find a strong path to value at that price tag.
I'm going to land at a 7 on Suarez, and I think performance-wise, I would rate him a little higher. The reason why I'm going to be a little lower on Suarez in my impact score than you is I think that this is where a lot of people are going to land. I think he will be very chalky, and for the price, I do think Suarez can get a good finish, but I would probably want to pivot down to Newman because I think he might potentially get a little lower ownership than Suarez. I think they're very similar plays, but obviously there's a much higher upside with the starting position Newman has, but I think Suarez has a better opportunity to actually get a really strong, maybe top 10 finish. And if he does that, he's obviously going to be worth the salary.
Yeah, and I've given Ryan Newman a 6. You're at a 7 on him because he does offer a place or a path to value with that 24th starting position. I don't know how much further he can manage, but if he's getting the top 16, it's going to look nice. So it's one of those deals where you definitely want to pay attention to him. Ricky Stenhouse, 6,100 starting 14th, is not in the greatest position in our opinion. He's our red flag. Doesn't really offer a lot of upside. Not really any. Don't feel like he's going to have a huge impact on this race.
Oh, yeah. Not a fan of Stenhouse this week. Even if he's able to kind of maintain that position, which I don't see, it would be okay if he can do that. But there's guys behind him that I think are in a better position and that will end up finishing above him. Plus, Stenhouse is very aggressive, and this is a narrow track. It's very technical, very hard to pass. There's plenty of video clips of him having issues here at Sonoma. That's why I can only give him a 3 this week.
These lineups this week are going to be pretty balanced. I think if you're looking for anybody any lower, Anthony Alfredo would be the bottom of the barrel for me. I've given him a lower score, of a 6, but I think he could achieve some sort of value if things go right. But he is a rookie; it could go south. Again, a punt play.
Yeah, I haven't actually constructed lineups yet, but right now I'm landing at a 4 on Alfredo. I don't think I'm gonna want to go lower than Suarez or Newman this week. I don't think you need to. There's not an aggressively high amount of high-priced guys. I mean, Truex is still below 11,000. So I don't think you have to do these punt plays to build solid lineups. We haven't seen it in previous optimals where you've had to do that. But it's NASCAR and anything can happen. So, yeah, I mean, Haley made one of the winning lineups in the big tourney last week. And Haley's is not usually a good play, but hey, he made it. So anything can happen, but I'm not high on Alfredo this week.
Well, we appreciate you watching, and if you've watched this long, we would appreciate it if you could subscribe. Check out all the links below in the description to find all the other content that we have. There's lots of it. We've talked about it throughout. Again, we appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this race getting underway. If you have time, again, go check out the main podcast. There's a lot of strategy involved this week. So for the DK Garage, this has been a lot of fun. I'm Joe. That's Jeremy, and we'll see you next week.